I'm Robin Holt. I'm here from the virtual team. And here today, we're just going to go through a webinar, which will go through Juggle Street and their backstory, and also give you a really good opportunity to ask questions about the offer, which is obviously up and coming. So without obviously going through the kind of the breakdown of what we're going to cover today, I'm just going to hand it over to David from Juggle Street.
Hi, so welcome, David James. I'm the founder and CEO of Juggle Street. Here is Armour, he's our CTO, and over here we have Justine, who's our marketing manager, and you'll be hearing from them as we go along. So just a little bit of a brief background. Juggle Street is my 5th startup, both here and in the US, previous startups. With 3 successful exits, both here and in the US. And a bit of a personal background. I'm also one of those crazy guys that's been second time around with the children. So I've got 2 older girls, now one at university and one through university, and a 7 and 9-year-old who are at primary school. And that's really part of the backstory to Juggle Street. When my older girls were growing up, they were desperate to find work in the neighborhood and couldn't find any. And then when Fiona and I were looking for babysitters for our young ones, we couldn't find anybody willing to do the work. So that was the initial impetus for, there was obviously demand, there was obviously supply, but there was no marketplace, and that's where it came from. Armour was my CTO on a previous startup, and we got together and started building out. The idea was to have a mobile friendly on-demand marketplace to put supply and demand together in the neighborhood. We've got children. I guess a lot of people online have got children as well, hence their interest in Juggle Street. So the number one thing for us was to generate trust in the neighborhood. Without trust, we've entered a neighborhood market, we've entered a market space where the trust barriers couldn't be any higher. So when back in the end of 2014, we launched a very clunky MVP at the local primary school and set to work. And back then it was just one-off babysitting jobs, and it was free for everybody. And that was always part of the plan, was to start simple and then build out the job occasions, which is why we chose the name Juggle Street. We obviously looked at a lot of different names, but we wanted an umbrella brand. And right back from the very first pitch deck, we had all these job occasions: babysitting, before school care, after school care, nannying, au pair, tutoring, and building from there. And that's sort of where we've got to now. So it took us nearly 2 years to get our first 10,000 users. And in that time, we had teams of people going out to primary schools, and lots of sausage sizzles. I think we all smelled like sausage sizzle. And we'd go to car boot sales at school. We'd go to election days and any fates, P&C fates and things like that. And we would go and we'd have jugglers juggling, and we'd actually talk to the parents, answer their questions directly, and build from there. And we literally went school by school across Sydney. So 2 years to get the first 10,000, but then just 7 months to get the second 10,000, so we're up to 20,000 users. So it's quite easy, relatively speaking, to make a pretty looking app nowadays, but to build the currency of trust that we've got, it's a long process. We've now got 110,000 users roughly across Australia and New Zealand. We went to New Zealand in 2019, and actually it took off in New Zealand probably quicker than it did in Australia. So winding the clock forward, approximately a year ago, we started this process with and along the way we've raised 3 or 4 rounds of capital, starting with myself as the founder, and then the family, friends and fools round, which some of the people I know, they fit into all categories, and then some latter rounds with some more sophisticated investors. So to date, we've raised about over $3 million already, and over $1 million, about $1 million of that is my own personal cash investment. A year ago or 18 months ago, with Alan and Robin and the team, we decided to go to crowdfunding because I think with the database of passionate users that we've got and the trust levels we've got, we're ideally suited for crowdfunding. And we started the expression of interest period, and we were sitting in a much bigger room, but doing this exact same event last year on Thursday, the 12th of March. And it was a physical event at Fishburners, and we had about 220 people, I think, were registered to turn up. And that was the onset of COVID. And it was the first virtual event at Fishburners. And then the next day, Friday the 13th of March, the government met at Parramatta Football Stadium and the country was put into lockdown. So our offer was only live overnight. And a year later, we've had like a lot of companies, we were sort of really not quite decimated, but really badly hit. And now we've rebounded, and I'll a bit more detail of that in a minute. And we think the position is, in fact, personally, we feel that the Juggle Street principles and neighbourhood and trust is even going to be more relevant in a post-COVID world. And obviously the school shutdowns and the homeschooling has affected us all, but it's also reinforced the importance of our neighbourhood and our community. And Juggle Street's really well placed to take advantage of that. So that's a sort of snapshot to where we are. And the offer is going live in a couple of days, and with looking to close on Friday, the 12th of March, which will be exactly a year since we pulled the last offer. So I'm happy to take any questions along the way rather than waiting to the end. But at this point, probably hand over to Justine, our marketing manager, and she'll run you through a very quick demonstration.
Yeah. Just to introduce myself, so I'm Justine. I've been with Juggle Street now for 5 years. I'm the marketing manager. I also work really closely with David and Alma on the user experience, and I also manage the customer service team. And I'm a juggling mum. I've got 2 children in primary school.
And Robin, you're down in Melbourne now. Can you allow desktop sharing, please?
Desktop sharing is available for all panelists.
Now, can you promote David's account, David James as a panelist?
Sorry, everybody. This is part of the problem where the Juggle Street team's in Sydney and the virtual.
Yeah, it's
I'm now a host.
been going on for a year. So you guys are now the hosts, so you should be able to go to the bottom and click on the green button to share your screen.
Now, can you promote David James, not Pacific Boardroom? So we are logged in as 2 accounts.
David, are you logged into the...
Yeah.
David James.
Yeah.
Was it your phone number? I don't have a David James in the attendees list, just to let you know.
I'll just send you a message.
Yeah. Never work with animals, children,
Yes.
and technology.
Yeah. So in a minute, I'm going to take you through just posting a one-off babysitting job. And I mean, there might be some parents watching and you've already posted jobs, so you'll already be familiar with how it all works.
And
I sent you a chat message.
send you a chat message, Robin, to promote.
You'll have to do that on Pacific because you're now host. Wait, hang on a minute. No, I've got it. There we go.
All right, here we go. Sorry about that, everybody. Okay. All right, so this is what you would see if you have a parent account and you've logged into your account. This is the first thing that you would see. This is what we call Near Me, and this is where you can browse through all your helper profiles that are near you, and you can see at the top you can look at the different job verticals, people that have signed up to be a nanny, babysitters, au pairs, and tutoring at the top. And to post a one-off job, you just go to the job section in the top right corner and then click on post a job. We'll do a one-off babysitting job. You select the date and the time and then put in a description of what the job entails. And then the next part is inviting the helpers. So you can see I've got 4,000, well, over 4,000 helpers near me. So what I've done is I've opened up the filters on the side, and this will help me narrow down my search. So, for example, if I had a small baby and I wanted somebody that was maybe a bit more mature and experienced, then I'd use the age filter, maybe select that they've done 5 or more jobs and so forth. So that will help me narrow it down. And I would usually invite maybe 10 to 20 helpers to increase my chances. In this example, I've just invited Sarah. Now I'm offering an hourly rate. I'm confirming that I'll be paying overtime, and then I also need to tell the helper how I'm going to pay, so I can select either a cash payment or bank transfer. So now I've got a job summary, so I'll just check over all that information. That all looks right, and I'm going to post the job to Sarah, and she'll now be notified via SMS in real time. So she can click on the link. She can click on the link that she receives in an SMS, view all the job details, and if she's interested, then she can hit apply or decline. And this is just my job summary, and you can see down the bottom you've got a list of who has applied and declined and viewed, and that's really helpful because usually you would have a large group of helpers there. And there's also a chat button, so if you have any questions that you want to ask, you can just, check in with the helpers before awarding the job. So is that playing? Oops, sorry. Play?
It's playing now.
Is it playing now?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so now I'm just going into my job section. I can see that Sarah has applied and I'm going to award her the job, and she will be notified in real time via SMS that she has won the job. And so it's really as simple as that. And then I've got a job summary, and I can use that chat button again to just confirm any details with her before the job starts. So that is just a one-off babysitting job that's really quite simple and easy. And now I'm going to hand over to Arma.
All right, so I'll give you a quick overview of the platform architecture, and I'm happy to elaborate on this further during the Q&A or while going through this slide. So basically, the platform is built on top of the 2 largest cloud providers, Azure and AWS. we have made a decision from the get-go to, instead of building the whole platform to run on a single cloud provider, is to use multiple cloud providers to rely on the innovation and the advantages of each provider. And so basically the platform is almost 50-50 split in terms of deployment across both Azure and AWS. This has proved quite useful for us a couple of years ago when we decided to expand to New Zealand, relying on cloud services that are available worldwide allows us to scale outward in terms of the number of users that the platform can support, and also deploy simultaneously across multiple countries. So the transition from an Australian-only business into an Australia plus New Zealand was relatively straightforward. And we already have the infrastructure in place to go to the US or the UK as we expand our services. The basic idea behind platform architecture that is composed of multiple building blocks that all work together to achieve the desired objective. So Justina showed you one of our user experiences that's dedicated for mobile users. We have other experiences dedicated to desktop users that use like a Mac or a PC. We also have a dedicated platform for that manages our entire marketing infrastructure, which are the country-specific websites that you would end up on depending on where you access the platform from. So if you are inside Australia, you would be directed to the Australian marketing platform, jugglestreet.com.au. If you are in New Zealand, you will be directed to the New Zealand user experience, jugglestreet.co.nz, and we have other infrastructures that have not been activated yet that would be present in the US or the UK. So aside from these three experiences, the marketing, desktop, and mobile, we have another platform that is used internally, which we collectively refer to as Bigfoot, that manages all of our, which acts out as our CRM and our analytics system in terms of tracking users, registrations, revenue over time, where the revenue is coming from, and whether we are hitting the planned revenue targets and so forth. So just to give you a brief demo on some of our back-end systems. So let's talk about Bigfoot Analytics, which basically provides real-time overview over our business operations on a daily basis. So we have two primary sections, one that manages all of our registrations over time, and then we're able to break it down by state, by city, by country, and also on a daily basis. And we have another section that manages all of our revenue, which David might elaborate on in terms of revenue that we generate from parents, revenue that we generate from helpers on a subscription and on a pay-as-you-go basis. So Justina has already showed you a version, like a brief overview of our mobile experience. This is also an overview of our desktop experience. So if you access any of our services on a laptop or a PC, that's what you typically get, where we are able to tap into the larger real estate by showing parents their location on the map and different carers, tutors, and so forth that live just around the corner. So,
sorry, there's a question there.
Yeah, so to wrap up, this is basically a drill down overview of the technology, which I can elaborate if anyone is interested in. But basically, we've got the marketing platform on one side, our desktop and mobile experiences that are also hosted on this end of the AWS end, the analytics platform, and then on the left side, we've got all of our infrastructure in terms of transaction management, payments, real-time communication, authorization server, which basically manages all interaction with the platform in terms of identifying who a user is and what they can do. It's kind of similar to what you would typically use when you access a platform, when you get a login with Facebook or continue with Google. It's kind of a centralized platform
because I think there was a question about is it only web-based? Can you just elaborate on why it's web-based and have plans to go to app?
Yeah. So the main advantage of relying primarily on a web-based front-end technology is agility. So once you go into the app space, there are multiple layers of multiple barriers that you have to go through every time you want to deploy a new update to the app. So if you go through Apple, you have to go through the App Store every time you want to deploy an update. The same thing for Google. So the apps in general tend to slow down our release cadence. So far we have been relying primarily on the web-based technologies, so that we are able to iterate aggressively on the platform. We typically go live, push updates to production 4 or 5 times every single day. It's very hard to achieve that level of agility once you have a physically app deployed on a device. But we have been iterating over our mobile experience for several years, and we're pretty happy with what we have achieved at this stage. So we're expecting to get into the app space probably in the second half of this year. So yeah, that's it for me. I'll hand over to David.
Just bring up my mobile account, and then I'll go to the PowerPoint. Yeah. So just pick up on a couple of points there. Justine did a quick demonstration of posting a job, and this is our mobile app. And as you can see, this is logged in as my account. It looks and feels like an app. It just doesn't. It isn't an app. It's a dedicated mobile experience. Arma touched on the ease of expanding internationally because of the technology in the back end, but our business model has also meant that we've been able to expand across different socio-economic areas and internationally. A lot of marketplaces have come and gone and failed because they've got fixed pricing structures. And so there's some fundamental difference between Juggle Street and the big platforms like the marketplaces people think about, Airbnb and Uber and things like that. Right from the very beginning, we wanted a market-driven marketplace. So supply and demand determines the price. Juggle Street does not get involved at all in setting the price of the job. So which is also meant from a legal perspective, we operate under what's called a private arrangement. It's a private arrangement between me, the parent, and my helper, my babysitter or my tutor. And typically a babysitting job might get sent out to 6 to 10 people. And then they can respond for the job, they can apply and decline. If they decline, they have to say why. So it's too short notice, I've got a calendar clash, or the job's too cheap. So if I send it out to 10 people and 8 come back straight away and say the job's too cheap, then I've got I can add more helpers, or I can, match the market. So as we've gone from different suburbs into different regions, into different cities, it's a seamless expansion due to the business model. And we can apply that to all the different job types, not just the individual one-off babysitting jobs, but to recurring jobs, like before and after school care. And then when we go into tutoring, there are one-off tutoring jobs, but a lot more of them are recurring jobs. So a lot of people ask us, well, is it like Airtasker is Juggle Street like Airtasker for childcare? No, I mean, if you had to summarize it, Airtasker does multiple jobs, but they're one-off jobs, and that person is not part of your trusted network. They can come from anywhere. They're not necessarily and usually aren't in your neighborhood, and they're a one-off job. And Airtasker and other platforms, they take a percentage of the value of the job. And Juggle Street has never done that because we operate in a private arrangement. So it's made growing revenue more difficult because we charge the parents to post a job or the individual job, or they can take an annual subscription and post as many jobs as they want. We now also charge the helpers an annual subscription, a membership fee, and at the moment that's $24, so it's just $2 a month for them to be on the platform. And what that meant when we first launched, we thought we would have to market aggressively to parents to get them on and build the trust, but also to helpers. But helpers have always found us. The helpers like the real-time nature of the platform. When a job SMS arrives on their phone, it's a job. We don't have availability calendars, because people don't keep calendars up to date. This is a job for these days and these dates and these times. Are you available? Yes or no? So there's no confusion between both sides of the market. And we don't, more importantly, we don't clip the ticket. That is, we don't take a percentage of the job. And platforms, generic platforms like Airtasker typically take between 25 and 40% of the total job value. And since COVID and the sort of the exponential growth of online tutoring and tutoring in general, there's a lot of people, a lot of entrants have come into the market, into the tutoring space, and some of those platforms take up to 65%. And when you have such an incentive, when the platform has such an incentive in the total value of the job, it's okay short term for the platform because they make a lot of money, but there's a natural incentive for both the, let's say, the tutor and the parent who's doing a recurring tutoring job to go outside the app. So we've purposely built our system and our framework the other way around. And now, as the volume comes into the market, we're up to 100,000 users, aiming for 250,000 users. And our original goal when we started was to connect to 1 million neighbours across Australia and New Zealand. As we're getting to scale, the recurring revenue is about 50% one-off job posting fees and 50% of annual recurring membership fees. And a typical user experience or user journey, a parent might come in and try the network with a simple one-off babysitting job. For example, that's $20. And then they might be fine for a couple of weeks or a couple of months. And then they come back and then it's like, well, you can pay another $20 or pay $60 and get an annual membership and post as many as you want. So the Juggle Street model has been to fill up the network on both sides and then overlay multiple job occasions, which is what we're in the process of doing now. Was there a question there?
Yes, I think Olivia was asking about the $2 payment to helpers. I didn't see the end of the question. Robin, can you see?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, look, now is a really good time as well to not only introduce questions and Q&As and make sure that everybody is aware of the Q&A feature. I've seen one question asked here and Olivia has asked a couple of questions, which are great. Olivia, you've asked the question of the helper annual membership is currently at $2 per month. Will it stay at this price?
It's been built in the background, so it can be adjusted for different job types. So in the future, it may be increased for the higher value. So $24 a year for babysitting for childcare jobs. But as we get established in home tutoring and high school home tutoring, let's say, or high school online tutoring, then for that to be on Juggle Street as a high school tutor, it may be a higher amount. So rather than $24 a year, it might be $240 a year. And we believe that's still a one-off, and it's still very competitive compared to losing half of your money every hour to the platform.
Yeah, right. No, absolutely. And I think, bringing up this slide here, David, you've had a question here, which is really applicable to the slide, which you're going to talk about now. And I was wondering if you could just add it into there, because an anonymous attendee has asked, which city have you had the most impact in or derived the most revenue from? And I think it would be really interesting to look at that this year and also all time as well.
Where's the revenue being derived from?
Correct, yeah.
Well, overall, it's about 15% from New Zealand and 85% from Australia. And then the split, let's say pre-COVID, the split would be very much the typical Australian population split. So, 70% between Victoria and New South Wales, and then the other states. So very typical sort of demographic Australian split there.
Mm. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I'm happy to keep on going through these questions, but maybe you just wanted to go through some of these slides, and then we could go back through some of the questions.
Yep. Are there any that are applicable to that at the moment? I'm happy to answer them as we go along.
Yeah, absolutely. Some of them are a little bit more specific, so I'm happy to wait for a little bit.
Okay. So one of the questions we ask, and like, what did COVID do to Juggle Street? How did we survive? And what are we going to do in the future? This graph sort of shows the roller coaster ride, and hitting rock bottom in our terms. Revenue went down from a record in January to rock bottom in April. And we found Juggle Street really is a very close barometer of people's sentiment in the country. And we started, when it happened, we started working internally on what we could do, because obviously people couldn't go into people's homes. That wasn't even allowed anymore. So we started working on offering tutoring online. We also started working on our SEO, search engine optimization, to get more organic traffic into the site, because we had to slash our marketing budget. And then we started growing, as you can see there, we started growing revenue across May, June, up to July, and everything was looking like it was coming back. Not bouncing back, but strongly and steadily. And then the lockdown in Victoria was announced, and we went down again. It sort of bottomed out for 2.5, 3 months, and then it's been climbing back up. And then, as you can see, January is usually our seasonally, January and February are our best months, and we only fell just short of this January, and just fell short of what we did in January prior to COVID. And the way the numbers are looking now for February, I think February will be more than last February, and possibly the best month we've ever had.
Awesome.
So what did happen, there was a lot of new registrations. We count our registrations. As you can see there, the registrations went down quite dramatically. But this January, we're getting close back. We're back to nearly 1,000 new registrations in a month. And the orange line there is showing the growth of the percentage of parents versus helpers. And as a marketplace, it's a very important statistic. And to put it in context, when we started, we were 95% helpers and 5% parents. And now we're getting in about 2/3, even as high as 3/4 in New Zealand. We're getting parents coming in who are looking for help, and 25, 30, 40% of helpers. So it's a very healthy, and again, we're acquiring those helpers at no marketing costs. So it's a very healthy two-sided marketplace. I mentioned briefly on the roller coaster slide, we had to slash our budgets and then concentrate on how we could generate organic free traffic coming to our marketing site. And a key metric in our business is CPA, or cost per acquisition. And you can see there, the orange line is our CPA, and this is for parent acquisition costs. This is acquiring a new customer, parent customer, and it was sitting around that 10 to 15 all through 2019. What we've managed to do during 2020 to the COVID 2020 is really drive that down. So we're now, in January, for instance, we've got nearly 1,000 parent registrations, but acquiring them at less than $5 each. So we've become far more efficient in doing that. And this graph here as well, the blue bars is the same roller coaster revenue one that we saw at the beginning. And the orange line there is the amount of money we were spending, but that's what we are spending on our marketing budget. So as you can see, we went down out of necessity when COVID happened, and now we've been managing this all on a shoestring marketing budget and achieving the same sort of levels of revenue we were before COVID. So before we go into, those CPAs and those acquisition costs, they're very much, they're childcare related, so they're not in tutoring. One of the side effects, or one of the results, the consequences of COVID was the boom in online education, in face-to-face, in tutoring in general, and the way that the beautiful invoicing machine that Google AdWords is, the more people that come into the market, the prices go up. And some of the acquisition costs compared to our $5 for childcare, you know, they're over $100 for tutoring. So that's part of the reason for the raise now, is to get money so we can enter the market. And that's one of the things that we saw when the lockdowns happened. It really, in the school closures, you know, it affected over 1.5 billion students worldwide. So there was money pouring into the market in the first half of 2020. You know, there was in excess of $12 billion came into edutech or edtech investments. And the online education market was already big. It was in 2020, it was 89 billion. But as you can see there, it's predicted to grow, you know, it's exponentially really to over 350 billion by 2025. And that, to us, is a massive opportunity. And I think, as you can see earlier from the demo there, we've already, can we just click into my mobile experience? Yeah, so just briefly, going back to the user experience here, because of the growth in tutors and everything else, we've now redesigned the network with childcare as a top nav, and that's divided into nannies, babysitters, and au pairs. And tutors is now its own vertical. And as you can see here, so when you say we've done this work, we actually have done the work, we've tested it, we've implemented it. And as you can see now, we've got in-home tutors and online tutors. And we're a big believer in Juggle Street on the concept of, you know, garbage in, garbage out. If you collect bad information on helpers and tutors, then if you get bad information in, it will be bad information presented out to the families. So if you look down here, as an example of a tutor, there's Gabrielle. She's done 3 Juggle Street jobs. She's got a written review. We've made it so people have now got an online video. If you're going to be teaching online, then you should be able to present yourself online. And we have these nice integrations. I can have a look at the tutoring experience she's got, the years, the subjects. So when we say we're ready to enter the tutoring market, we really are. Go back to the PowerPoint. Thanks. So how are we going to get into the market? The big money and the big interest has been in high school tutoring, and there's been some pretty crazy valuations and investments. And Cluey Learning recently did a listing, an IPO, on about 150 million valuation. But Juggle Street's strength is, and our core customer base is parents of primary age children. So like my daughter and my son, and it's the cohort of primary school parents that feel that their children have been more disadvantaged by COVID than the high school parents. And that's completely understandable, because high schools prior to COVID were far more better equipped and practiced that online education than the primary school were. But following the hysteria of everything online, and 2020 certainly was the year of everything online, education experts now believe the future will be a hybrid blending model between face-to-face and online. And we personally, as a father of 2 primary school children, the last thing that I want, and we teach our children Mandarin, and we needed to get a new one recently, and it certainly wasn't going to be online. It's face-to-face. And we believe at Juggle Street, the pendulum is going to swing back to face-to-face, and Juggle Street is ideally placed for that. And we already have approaching 8,000 primary school tutors with full profiles already registered on Juggle Street.
David, I might just come in because we've got quite a few questions here, and I'd love to provide some of the answers off of the back of some of that really interesting and insightful data that you presented there. So Jen here has just asked what your expectations over the next 12 months in terms of profit and user growth are.
The offer document is going to be released in the next day or two, and with the crowdsourced funding legislation, it's like we're not actually going to be publicising financial forecasts, but the revenue that we're expecting to do this month is about $75,000. That is at our current expense rate. That is actually we're running at break even at that level, and we fully expect that. And as you can see, this is the extent of our full-time team. We've got two ladies who work from home remotely doing customer service, and so we run very lean and mean. And as Arma demonstrated, everything in the systems in the back end is already built and scalable. So we can become very profitable, and it's a classic marketplace that once it's built, it scales in users and scales in profitability. But part of the reason is we don't want to tread water. We want to invest specifically into the tutor market to grow.
Yeah, awesome. And just below, Rachel here has asked about trust barrier. You kind of mentioned this. Obviously, you're very well placed to answer this, being in the business as long as you've been. But what does Juggle Street have in place to really gain trust from both parents and helpers for the children's and helpers' safety?
Well, it's mandatory on the platform for the helpers to have a working with children check, and we have systems in place in the back end that a helper profile won't become live on the platform until we've had that verified with the appropriate state government website. Now, if you're an au pair, for example, and you want to come onto the platform and you're a non-resident, then you have to put in your passport details, and we do a Vivo check, which is a right to work, to check that you actually have the right visa to work in Australia. And again, your profile won't go live until it's been verified. So I suppose they're the government sort of the technical things that have to be achieved. But as a parent myself, the trust is really in if you go in, and we present helpers to parents based on this trust algorithm that we run in the background, and that's the number of jobs you've done, the number of jobs you've cancelled, which is a sort of measure of reliability, the number of written reviews that parents have gone to the trouble of writing about you, and then how quickly you respond, your response rates and activity levels and things like that. So that produces a sort of a trust algorithm that's presented to parents. And I know personally, I mean, if a helper's in there and they've got 123 jobs and 43 written reviews, and then you can click on them, and if you're on the desktop site, you can see them where they are on the map. You can see, maybe even someone in your neighbourhood they've done work for. So it's really leveraging that trust with the ratings and reviews.
Yeah, awesome. Absolutely. Like it's such a key element. And I guess being around for as long as you've been, you've got those diehard supporters who really do love and trust Juggle Street to, really take care of those needs. It's up to you if you would like to keep on going through some of these questions or just continue.
Yeah, I mean, this is a future development, which is more detailed in the offer document, but this is called Juggle Street Marketplace. So when you come to the marketing site now, you can see top left there, we've got the jobs, so you can choose a job, put in your suburb, and it'll give you an indie. So this is adding another channel on the supply side, which we call it Marketplace. And there's a huge industry out there, which again has suffered through COVID, but kids entertainment and education and activities. And that's all the way from a Spider-Man doing a birthday party and all the way through to a sort of professional soccer camp for school holidays. And this is we're classifying as kids service providers, and we will be charging annual subscriptions to them, same as we're charging an annual subscription to the helpers. And that will start off tiered. So if you're a standalone Spider-Man doing school birthday parties, birthday parties in the park, you'll have one level of annual subscription, and if you're at the soccer camp, you'll have a much higher annual subscription. And this will be a free service to parents. So it creates for Juggle Street, it creates another revenue stream. But in terms of our relationship with the parents, it's had stickiness for people to come back. And we believe the user experience on Juggle Street compared to other just basic web searches that you can do will have the ratings and reviews. It's proximity based. You'll be able to see, Spider-Man's not going to come, he's not going to travel 3 hours across Sydney to do a 2-hour gig in the park with your child. So that neighbourhood thing is still very core and central. So that's just one of the features to get. But again, example of our database is that's our most valuable asset. And the ideas that we've got in the pipeline is both on the supply side and the demand side is creating more opportunities for people to post jobs, for people to find services and build it out from there. What's the next question, Robert?
Yeah, awesome. The next question, I think it's kind of, I think it's best answered here. So Jen has asked what the ROI on the 5 million invested so far is. Obviously, you've built up the business, you've built up the platform to the point at which it's really become a very dominant player in this space. I'd love to, just hear from your side what some of the key milestones are that you feel that you've managed to achieve with the 5 million invested so far.
I hope I didn't say 5 mil earlier. I think it's just over.
Three.
I said 3. I think I said 3. Yeah, 3. It's sitting about 3.1.
Got it.
Over the last 6 years.
Yeah.
I suppose that's in terms of marketplaces. That's a very meager amount of money, and that's really has got us. And I don't know how you measure the ROI on that, but we now have state-of-the-art technology, front-end, back-end, scalable systems, and at a point where it could run as is, as a profitable business. But from my point of view, it's like it's taken longer to get to this point than we hoped, and it's my 5th startup, and there's only one number you ever hit in your business plan, and that's paying your rent. But joking aside, it's probably, I thought we'd be at this point after 3 years rather than 3 or 4 years rather than 5 or 6. But I think that's the nature of the marketplace with parents and trust, and it's just taken longer to get to that point.
Yeah.
But I think it's we're now in a position where it really can. We're not a startup. We're clearly not a startup, and it's a scale up. It's a scale up investment. And I'm not trying to scoot around the answer. I just don't know how you measure the ROI on those $3 million over the last 6 years.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I'd probably answer it the same way you have, with really highlighting the platform that you've built and the position you've got to. It's really a case of the barrier to entry is quite high, especially for marketplace businesses and startups, especially when you're getting to a scale up position. And when you do compare it to businesses overseas, say the US, UK, a lot more would have probably been invested into the business at this stage to get past 100,000 users. So, probably.
And competitors have come and gone, but a lot of them come in and just their name says tutoring or babysitting or nannying, and they're really just box themselves into a corner. So
absolutely.
We've invested a lot in the platform and building the trust, but also extra features like the checking the visas and the video integration, and it's all barrier to entry to someone else coming into the market.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And just moving down here, we've got a question from Rachel who's asked, also, do you have a card payment enabled in the app? Obviously, you've explained that you've got a website which is almost designed like an app. Don't know if that part was completely just caught on earlier, but I actually really like that you've gone for a web, like a website, as opposed to just an app, because I know a number of startups who have raised funds to build apps whereby people actually end up using the mobile website a lot more so than the app. So then they revert back. But Rachel's question here is specifically just asking if you have card payments enabled, or if people pay cash between parents and helpers.
You can choose whether it's cash. Well, the parents pay the helpers directly, and the platform, Juggle Street, doesn't get involved.
Yeah.
So it was difficult to pick up in the demonstration. So if you chose bank transfer, once you award the job to the helper, then their bank details would be released to you as the parent. And we did look at, technically, I mean, in the back end, we use Stripe, and we have the user accounts have a digital wallet, and people can use their credit cards to buy subscriptions. So technically, there's no reason that we couldn't do it, but the card platforms take a lot of money. The payment platforms take a lot of money percentage-wise, without really adding any value. And we found before we built the bank transfer, parents were doing that anyway. It's about 50-50, 50% are using cash and 50% they're doing a bank transfer. So what we've done is just make that easier. And again, that information isn't displayed. It's all very confidential, and it's just released to the parent at the point of awarding the job.
Yeah, that's awesome, and really interesting actually to hear the way it's set up. It's obviously providing the best price which you possibly can give to the helpers.
Answer any more?
Yeah, absolutely. There's 9 more questions actually to get through.
I'll try and answer them quicker then.
Yeah. So Michael here has asked, what is the percentage of annual revenue generated from people posting a job and people offering services on Juggle Street?
Well, at the moment, this slide here, the services thing, that's not live. So at the moment, it's all from posting. Well, let's go back a step. We introduced until last October, all the revenue was from parents posting jobs.
Yeah.
And that was split roughly 50% one-off posting fees, and 50% annual subscriptions, recurring annual subscriptions. At the end of October, we introduced the payments from helpers, and now the overall revenue split is probably 80%, 20%. 80% from parents and 20% from helper memberships.
Awesome. Awesome. And just moving down here, Jen has asked, do you intend to expand your marketing strategy? There are numerous social media channels which are available. As a mother of 5, I haven't seen any advertising at all, actually.
That doesn't surprise me because we've got no advertising budget. It's a bit of a chicken and egg thing. Yes, we do. We do Facebook and Instagram. And before COVID, it was probably 80%. As we found, it's very intent based. If someone needs something, they go to Google, and so we probably 75% Google AdWords and 25% social. But since budgets were slashed and everything else, it's whatever advertising we've done, it has been social. So it's been Facebook and Instagram, and definitely we will be ramping that up. But we made a very conscious effort to sort of tie those, sever those ties, to Google. I mean, yeah, more sustainable, leverageable advertising and promotion by social is definitely the way forward.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And Jen's just asked below if it's possible to get a copy of the a PDF copy of the presentation that you've put here together today.
Yes, it will, and there will be a recording, and hopefully we can edit out all the technical issues at the beginning. So yes, it will be, and once the lawyers have finally signed off, if you're registered in the crowdfunding, in a couple of days, the detailed offer document will also be available from the virtual platform as a PDF.
Yeah, that's absolutely correct. That's absolutely correct. And just moving down here, Zoe has asked a question. Hello, has there been any calculations made on the number of accounts that have been inactive or unused over the last 12 months? Really interesting question, actually.
Yes, a bit of a moving feast. We again, with the numbers of people that are in the platform, each job occasion has a default to the filters, and one of the main defaults is last seen or active. So some of them, it might be set to show you everyone, or it could be so and that goes right down to, so you can filter by someone that was active in 1 day or 1 week or 30 days, or and we used to take helpers off the network if they hadn't been active for 90 days. But we find people come and go and come back into the network. So now if they haven't been active, they won't appear in the search. Like you'd have to, they wouldn't appear. And by default, as you can see, we have response rates on the card, and we measure right down to people who respond to their SMSs within one hour or 1 day. So we have the tools there. If it's a last minute job, you want someone who's very active, and you'd use the filters accordingly.
Yeah, absolutely. And just quickly, have you finished going through these slides so I can just unshare this one?
Yeah. Yeah, that's just the timeline.
Got it. Right.
For the crowdfunding, but yeah, that's it, Robin.
Actually, we can leave that one up there because that's very relevant. So I'll just move on down to the final few questions which you've got. And Rachel here is really intrigued to understand how you got the CPA down and if you're expecting it to stay down.
Yeah, I mean, Justine probably.
Yeah, well, I mean, we've got a team, an agency that we use, and we've tried, I guess, lots of different ways of managing our paid media. We've had it in-house. At certain stages, we've used different external agencies, but the team that we've got at the moment, we're really happy with, and they optimise the campaigns, almost every day to drive down that CPA.
And the graph I showed, I think it shows it came down very quickly to start with, but it's been steadily coming down, and it's maintaining. I think it is maintainable, yes, and also it's a function, that dollar figure is a function of the amount of free traffic that comes to your network. So we've done a lot of work for SEO, search engine optimization, and CRO, conversion rate optimization. So the better your website is at attracting and generating free traffic, and the better your website is at converting that traffic, then that all contributes to the overall, that's the hero figure, but there's a lot of things going on in the background. And that's really the 9 months of COVID, 9 months, that was our focus. And I suppose that's one of the side benefits of, you got round to those jobs that you might not have before. And then, we're applying those sort of SEO and CRO strategies to marketplace and everything. So yes, we believe we can, but we will, when we go into tutoring, we will measure them separately. At the moment, I'm giving the overall one because it just happens that the overall one is just childcare. But as we go into new markets, we will measure, as we do on a minute basis. We will measure and report on the vertical channels.
Yeah, awesome. And we've just had another question here, which is pricing is obviously skewed towards an annual membership with a high one-off job posts. Do you have in mind a quarterly pricing model strategy?
Yeah, I think yeah, we've had 6 or 7 serious iterations of the business model, of the revenue model, and quarterly was one of the things we ran for over a year. And I think now for about 2 years, we've coming up for 2 years, this has been the option. And again, when we started, babysitting jobs were free, and then they were $5, and then they were $7.50, and then they were $10, and then they were $15 as a one-off, just giving you an example, and now they're $20. And we haven't increased that for that 2 years either. So pricing is what is really tricky. It's an art and a science, but and again, it's $20 for a one-off, and that's really cheap, because that babysitter might be with you for 3 months or 3 years. Things change, and babysitters leave, and they get busy, and which is what happens, and then you need another one. So then there's that tipping point. You come back in, and you're going to go from $20 to $40 invested in the platform, or go from $20 and spend the $60, and you've got $80 total investment, but then you've got 12 months ahead of you. You can post as many as you want. So yeah, it is obviously it's skewed towards annual subscriptions, because one, that's better from a revenue point of view, but also from a user point of view, we're very conscious. Like it's important that people get into the habit of using Juggle Street. We don't want them to think, oh yeah, I don't want to post a job because it costs me money. Like if you paid your membership, then post as many jobs as you want. And that gets activity in the network, which is what the users are looking for as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And you've actually had a couple of questions here on trust, so I'll sort of try and bundle them together. And somebody's asked about Trustwall being well and good on the platform, but with a face-to-face meeting being different. I'm sure that you've kind of had this before and you've covered it off. It's really been something which you've refined a lot as the business has grown. How do you kind of get past the initial issues of obviously it's a matchmaking piece, you're trying to make it as easy as possible for people to match up. How have you found that you've really perfected the trust issue that some people may have on the platform?
Well, it's interesting because it's a perception thing. And we've always had, and we always struggle to communicate it, but people in the back said, well, if I meet someone online, I have to meet them online, but it's like, well, just because you were introduced to them online doesn't mean to say you can't have a face-to-face meeting before you hire them. And that's what
a lot of parents do that, and they use a chat facility to do that. And if they're looking for somebody, especially as a long-term nanny or before and after school care, they may have a few helpers apply, and then they would interview them face-to-face to get a feel. And we do have these working with children checks and so forth, but if they haven't done a job before, the parent would take it into their own hands, which I've done myself using after school care. If the helper hasn't got a written review, then I would just ask for the name and number of somebody that they've worked for and call that person. And both sides have always been happy. The helper's been happy because she's trying to get her first job, and other parents are always happy to help when they have good babysitters and nannies.
Yeah, and we've got this thing internally which we always refer back to, which is the trust coefficient. So when you're a first-time parent with the first child, your trust level is the highest it can be, and in brackets paranoid, and we can say that we've all been there. And then you go back to work, the second child, and then you sort of slide down the graph, down the coefficient of trust, down to lower trust levels. But as a parent, you say, I'm just being more practical. And for us, it's always been the best way to address that is to have a helper that addresses that need. And so if you're a first time mum with or dad with the highest level of trust barrier, or you're going to want an empty nester, or a Mrs. Doubtfire, as we sometimes refer to. So someone, a grandmother, a grandparent that's been there and done that. And then when the kids are 9 and 10 and it's coming back from school, and then maybe a 19-year-old around the corner that's done 20 jobs. So I think you'll find that the first time mums, they'll always do the face-to-face interviews, and then, like Justine said, they might, if you need a new one, you'd look at some of the references and reviews, and you do a phone interview, and so it's sort of the complete scale.
And every parent's different as well.
For sure.
You know, with the level of checks they wish to do. So it's up to the individual as well.
100%, 100%. And I think we're just going to answer the final questions here. So we've got Rachel who's asked if you have an advisory board and what advice you get on, say, financing, marketing and strategy, etc.
Yes, I've been a firm believer in all my startups. At a base level, we've got a board of directors, and the best operating boards are ones that have a majority of, one, where the CEO is not the chairman, and two, where the majority are independent external directors. And we're very fortunate. So Alma and myself are the two executive directors, and then we've got three independent non-executive directors, all three of them very experienced and there's detailed profiles of those individuals in the offer document. And then in my years of doing this, then we've got, I have a quite substantial network of other advisors and investors. To date, I think we've got 33 investors along the journey so far, and some of those have been sophisticated long-term investors that are also advisors. So yeah, big firm, big believer in and we have quarterly board meetings, and we have motions, and our corporate governance for a company of our size is extremely good.
Yeah, awesome. And it's just really, I guess, kind of rounding things up. Actually, I might ask Jen's question first around your competitor, who's kind of highlighted babysitter.com.au as perhaps your biggest competition. They've made, they said, I assume it's not profitable as it's closing down. What does this mean for your business?
So Find a Babysitter, I mean, that was, 7 years ago. That was by far the dominant player in the market. And it was, back in the day when Fairfax were acquiring digital assets to put on their mastheads and things like that. And that got up to over 600,000 users. But it's been, as some of the larger media companies, it's not a core asset, it's been neglected. And it's slowly withering on the vine, because Fairfax get acquired by Channel 9. And then, it's an even smaller piece in a more complicated puzzle. So, yeah, we had a lot of our attention and focus over the years, but the last couple of years, it's really been sliding, the inevitable slide down. And, and as we've got bigger and more features and, more trust, what they have got, though, is a lot of organic search and they've got a lot of organic reach. So when you go and search, because, one, they've got the name, and with Google matching the name with your intent, but they've also got all the links from the publications and everything over the years. But no, it's it's been, fortuitous for us in the last 18 months, especially, that it seems to be going downwards.
Yeah, right. Yeah, absolutely. And I think Rachel's question really sums and is going to round this off nicely, because she's asking what is this round of funding aiming to achieve? Are you looking to invest in marketing or customer service or further development of the platform? I know you've touched on this quite a lot with tutoring, but perhaps it could just be a kind of final round off of exactly what you're looking to use the funds raised for.
Basically into two, marketing and tech. At the moment, everything you've seen has been built and is being managed by Armour, which is amazing. So we want to hire a proper tech team rather than a tech individual. We call a team, and that's what we really need to do to have the infrastructure in place to release apps. So that would be our number one tech thing, because it's not just the building of the app, but it's supporting multiple, Android and iOS and App Store and everything else. And the marketing will be really focused on, owning the primary school tutoring market. So they're our big two ticket items. But I don't think, so the increase in headcount would probably be just in the tech team, and then the marketing budget.
Got it. That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, look, that really rounds off all the questions, and there were some great questions in there, which was awesome to see. And it's great to see what's happened really with the business, obviously during COVID, really tough times, but you've come out with a brand new product and also new revenue stream, which is really interesting to hear those insights and really understand where the business has gone to. As everybody can see on the page here, we're looking to open the private offer for Juggle Street this week. So for everybody who's expressed interest, I'm sure 99% of people here have. If you haven't already, you can head to the Juggle Street page. It's on virtual. But the offer document will be coming out. It will probably answer any more questions that you do have. But if you have any questions before that, you can always email myself, robin@virtual.com, or get in touch with the Juggle Street team, which you can do on the Juggle Street page on virtual. Did you have any final points that you just wanted to make on your end to the Juggle Street team?
I don't think so. I think I've answered, probably taken too much of everyone's time anyway. But thank you for attending, everybody.
Yeah, thank you very much, especially to those of you who stayed until the end. And look, of course, you'll see more information on the offer in the offer document, which is going to be there. But should you have any other questions, there's very easy ways to reach us. So thank you very much for coming and attending till the end. See you soon. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.